Hey everyone, what is up? It is Digital Optimist here. I just want to say thank you so much for joining us on Beyond the Den. Quick favor to ask, hit that subscribe button. When you hit that subscribe button, that's going to allow me to attract top tier guests to provide you with the most value possible. Give me a follow over on X at Digital Optimist. Let's get started.
Winning a punk would be very cool as a prize. I think that's like a perfect prize for like an outside reward. I don't particularly like the idea of ETH rewards. Like they could be cool, like it would attract an audience, but like it doesn't seem that different from just Wool. Or it's like Wool appeals to people that are already in Wolf Game. The ETH appeals to people that aren't. It does give a bit more stability there. That'd be cool. But like a punk it's just cool. It is just a cool reward.
Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of Beyond the Den. Today, we have a special guest for both casual and hardcore gamers. We're joined by Ender, a dominant force in Wolf Game and a top competitor in InfiniGods. Ender, welcome.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Cool, man. You know, I've been trying to get you on for a couple months here, and I think that now that Peak Games is underway, things have calmed down just a bit. I think it's a perfect time. Before we dive into Wolf Game, tell us about your background in competitive gaming. Like, what skills have you acquired, and also how have they translated into your Web3 gaming journey?
Yeah, so my background comes from Hearthstone. So I spent like a year or two of my life just playing Hearthstone, basically. I was just trying to be like as good as I could be, competing in tournaments for it. It was a very, very enjoyable time in my life. The main skills that I picked up from that is basically just like how to learn a game. The game itself doesn't translate too well. There's things about just thinking like, just being able to see forward a little bit. So thinking like, okay, next turn is going to be like this will be the state. How do I adapt to that? That applies to like all games, like Waterwall, Hex, Wolfwits. But yeah, it's just about how to learn a game. And how to learn a game is basically you just put in time playing the game and analyze your games afterwards, talk about the game. Those are all very helpful things. Get into a good group, like having people to talk about the game with helps immensely. Yeah, that's sort of the main takeaways I get from that experience. Also, just great being in the community for games. So, like, traveling for Hearthstone was a great time. And then I did that recently with InfiniGods, flying me out to the States for VCon. And it was great meeting everyone there. And so that's sort of why I'm in gaming, like what I love about it.
Yeah, very cool. So Hearthstone, is it a digital card game?
Yeah, it's a digital card game. Okay. So, like, if anyone's familiar with like Magic the Gathering or Pokemon or Yu-Gi-Oh, it's just like that, but just digital.
Cool. And when did you start your journey in gaming overall? Were you a gamer basically out of the womb, or?
Yeah, no, I've always loved gaming, board games as well as computer games. Like when I was like 5 or whatever, I was just loved watching my dad play computer games, like Baldur's Gate 2 actually, which is kind of topical with Baldur's Gate 3 releasing. I played that like from a very young age when it came out.
Nice. So you always had that killer instinct from the get-go?
Yeah. No, I've always loved leaderboards. There was like a phase in my life, like when I was like 12 or 13, I think I just got like an iPad for the first time. What I'd do is I just like look for games with leaderboards like on the App Store, and it would just like, I think Game Center was called or something, and it just had leaderboards, and I would just try and get number one on as many leaderboards as I could. I just download a game, spend a month playing it, see how high I could place on the leaderboard, go to the next game. I love leaderboards.
Yeah, so that would be your number one motivation then, is being on that leaderboard, right? Or being at the top.
Yeah, being at the top is definitely a very good motivator for me. But it is also just being good at the game in general. Like, I enjoy that. Like, there's games like chess, for example, or poker, which I both enjoy a lot. And I know I'm never being remotely close to number one at either of those games. There's just been people that have played it for a lot longer than me. They're just a lot better. They putting a lot more time and effort into it, and they're just always going to be a lot better than me. But I enjoy like raising my skill level on those two, like and just noticing my own game improving. So it's not
Yeah.
just being the best; it's also being the best that I can be. So that helps.
Interesting. How many hours would you say you invest per day in gaming?
It varies a lot. Now it's probably a few hours. Most days, like yeah, I'm not like dedicated right now. I'm sort of like in like a soft period peak. I feel like I've got a decent chunk of the skills, and then I'm not like motivated to go to that next step because there's not like leaderboards. I think leaderboards might be like a big motivating factor for me to really try and get good at water wall specifically. But when I'm like really focused on trying to get better, it can easily be like 10-hour days or even longer, like just practicing this game, just trying to
Hmm.
get good.
So, Ender, in your mind, what makes a successful gamer?
I think there's like four sort of key factors. There's just raw amount of time you have available to put in. Like you have 24 hours in the day. You might have like work, you might have a family. That's going to take time. If you have just raw time available, you're going to have more success. Then there's like discipline. Discipline is like how many hours are you actually putting in focused work to learn the game. This is not just like playing the game casually. Like, yeah, I'm going to play let's say Hearthstone for like 10 hours and I'm not going to think, I'm just going to do it. This is looking at every decision you're making and thinking, okay, what could I do? And this counts like off game study. Like for Hearthstone, for example, I looked at a ton of data on like every card wins this percentage of the time. The same thing is for Wolfwitz. So like briefly, like the API was available. Once we get more stats available for Wolf Game, it's going to be like involve a lot of analyzing those. It's going to be analyzing game scenarios. It's going to be looking back at your past games like, okay, what could I have done differently? Was there a way for me to win this game, or did I just get unlucky? For Water War, you can definitely do that heavily. There is always a move that turned a win into a loss with Water War, pretty much. If you can identify that move after each game, like that's a massive learning thing. Then there's raw skill as well. Like some players are to just have a natural affinity to some parts of the game. So players are going to be good at particular games. Like some players, but these are three different games. So like some players are going to be good at different parts of the game. But like that's a huge step up. But like a player who has two out of those three is going to be able to compete with any player with those two out of three. So they might not be disciplined, but they just have a lot of time and they're good at games. They're going to be able to compete with someone who's not naturally good at games, but they're putting in a lot of time and they're doing focused work. They're going to be on sort of similar skill levels. And similarly, like if you're good at games and you're going to put in like focused time, even if you only have like half an hour a day to learn, you're going to be able to compete with someone who has a lot of time and is disciplined. And then the last factor is just luck. Like you're going to get lucky, especially in Wolfwitz and Tugwell, but even for Hex, like there's just randomness involved. Someone's going to win the competition at the end of the day. If they're evenly matched on the other three, you're going to win. And I don't think, like even for Hearthstone, which was like a very highly skilled game, there were very, very few people that had like all three. Like top competitors, you still only need two out of the three. You just pick times, discipline, skill. If you have two out of those three, you're going to be competing on the top level. If you have three out of three, like you're probably going to be the best unless luck gets in the way.
Yeah, man. Awesome advice, dude. I love the discipline end. It's so important.
For sure, yeah.
Discipline, they all kind of like lead to one another, right? So you start off with time, the amount of time you're putting in, and then that will lead to obviously discipline because you're doing the time, you're putting in the time, which will then lead to skill, right? And the more skill you have, the luckier you get, right?
So
in
for
life.
skill, I would say it's a bit different. So like I'd say there's like a raw skill, like it's without putting in any time, just like how much like natural affinity do you have for this particular task? And I think that does vary between people.
Yeah.
And then that all goes into like an equation, and the result is like how good are you actually at this game after that.
Yeah.
which is like true skill. Like that's what matters. And
Yeah.
then time and discipline definitely help grow that.
Love it. Having a natural knack for something, right? Some
Yeah,
people are just naturals, right?
yeah, for sure.
It's crazy, man. And it's really fascinating to see the gaming world become continually more competitive, and it's becoming a sport. And
Yeah, for
it is a
sure.
sport, right? In your mind, I mean, it definitely is. It's all the attributes that go into a physical sport. It's more of that mental sport, right? So what would you say your strengths are in gaming? Like what makes you different than any other gamer out there?
So I think my main strength is learning a new game quickly or a new component quickly. I think that
Mm.
that is my strength. So I've noticed that with Hearthstone, for example, they have like new expansions and stuff, so the game changes every like couple of months.
Mm-hmm.
I'm best in like day one, like day two or three of an expansion when everyone's just trying to figure out what's happening.
Like
Um,
me.
yeah, yeah. So I can pick that up quite quickly. Uh, yeah, and I do that just by putting in the time immediately, and stuff sort of just clicks sometimes. So that helps.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Cool. And then you talked about a little bit about traveling, right?
yep.
So InfiniGods flew you out to Indy for that event, which was really cool. And then you also traveled for Hearthstone too, or
Yep. Yeah, so I traveled a bit for that. Not a huge amount, but I went to, I think, China and Singapore for it, which were both great. And also flew to Sydney a couple of times, yeah, for
cool.
events, and those were pretty fun.
Nice. And were those live events like, or were they just kind of meetups with the
Yeah, no,
community?
those were live events, so those were tournaments, which I competed in.
Nice. What's your best experience in gaming? Like, do you have like a time when you flew out to say you played in China, right? Was there like any moment that was like your adrenaline was extremely high?
Um, I think Singapore probably the most, playing on a live stage in front of a lot of people with like a commentated game. Like that's an incredible experience.
Hmm.
I was also playing against probably one of the top five players in the world at that time, so that was very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, just being in front of a live audience with commentators in a high stakes game, it's a very thrilling experience.
Yeah, I could imagine. I've been at pretty high levels competing in different sports with spectators there, and that just throws a whole new, dimension into your game, and it could freeze a lot of people too, right? You see that especially with the the rookies that have made it to the big stage and they just literally can't think. I remember I was caddying for my brother-in-law who made it to New York State Amateur for golf a couple years, and he missed like a 2 foot putt. And then I was like, afterwards, I was like, what's going on, dude? And he's just like, dude, I couldn't feel my hands. So,
I
yeah,
get that. No, I
yeah,
play worse on stage of like high stakes games than I do just regularly. I'm at my best when I could just sit at home on the computer. I'm playing for 12 hours straight and I'm just grinding out games. Everyone's the same. I'm thinking through. Yeah. And then I sort of have this bad mindset sometimes, like when I'm on a stage, like especially for Hearthstone. And I think a similar thing could easily happen with like Wolfwits and Tug of War. Less so for Waterwall. It's just there's a lot of luck in them, and it's easy to say, okay, I'm here, I've got here, I just need to get lucky, and I'll be fine. And it
hmm
happens sometimes.
yeah,
But yeah, that's a dangerous mindset because
sure,
you lose a lot of your edge if you do that.
yeah, and your wool, right?
Yeah, yeah, and you will. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, it's gonna be
that's
interesting
funny.
playing for like the summit's high stakes already, but it's not like it's become a routine. It's like, yeah, this is one 50K match. I've got another one. It's not like each one is special.
Hmm.
It'll be very interesting if there's like a tournament set up for it, where it's like this is the grand finals. We're playing for 2 million wall here. If you
Yeah,
lose, you walk away with nothing. Yeah,
sure.
it's just gonna be a very different experience
Do
if it
you
happens.
do you envision that happening?
I imagine we'd see tournaments of some kind. They're I think they're a great viewing experience, which I think Wolf Game kind of needs. Yeah, you can really rally a community behind. We're going to be watching these games. These games matter.
Hmm.
Whereas I don't think we currently have that much.
Hmm. Hmm.
But it
Yeah,
needs a
we'll get.
spectate function first. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that will definitely come in the future, and I think we'll touch on that a little bit down the road in this podcast. What kind of led you to Wolf Game in the first place?
Yeah. There's a bit of a journey there. I was basically just very ready to buy any NFT. I've just been watching people on my timeline for months, just like they looked like they were getting very rich from NFTs. And then Wolfgame was in like November 2021. There was a bit of a lull a few months before that. It really popped off in like August. Like the first time I saw NFTs was in after the GameStop thing, so February 2021. I heard about like GameStop kind of early and then just didn't do anything with it. And I was like, huh, it's like this was a chance to make a lot of money. I should have just acted on it. Like, let's see what
Mhm.
else. Like, my information circle sounds like it's good. Like, it looks like it's ahead of the curve. I'm hearing about things, and then later they're really popping off. I
Mhm.
should get in early for what I hear. And then I looked the GameStop thing happened. I'm like, what else is like that? What else am I hearing about? I'm like, oh, I'm kind of hearing about NFTs. I'm seeing NFTs on my time. Like, maybe I should get into that. And then I Googled them, like, oh, these are already huge. This is in February 2021 when they're absolutely tiny. And they're like
Mhm.
100x after. I looked up, so Axie Infinity came up, which is also like what a lot of my friends from Hearthstone, they moved into Axie Infinity,
Okay.
especially from like the Philippines. The Hearthstone scene was pretty big in the Philippines. Axie was huge in the Philippines. So like
Mhm.
they all did that. And then I just saw them playing. I wanted to get into that and then just sort of didn't. Then I saw Zedron. Zedrun looked like it would be very fun. It appealed to me a lot. I tried depositing money into MetaMask and then that failed, and I gave up. And then I saw Zedrun really pop off. So
Mm.
I
Mm.
was very ready to buy in. And then someone I followed from Hearthstone was actually Otto Suen. And
Mhm.
he really, I don't know if you know him, but he's big in Wolf Game.
Yeah, I've
And
seen him in the community. Yeah.
he became like a massive Twitter influencer. I've been
Mhm.
following him since like 100 followers from Hearthstone and watched him grow to like 100,000. And
Cool.
then he just shilled Wolf Game hard one time. I'm like, this is great. I'm like, okay, I'm buying immediately. I was like, for the last like week before Wolf Game, I was literally like, had money in MetaMask. The next time he shills an NFT, I'm going to buy it instantly. And then I did, and then it took off, and that was crazy. That was a crazy couple of days. It's like
Cool.
it just, yeah.
Very cool. And what did you buy first?
I bought a sheep. Right, I bought one sheep for like 0.04 ETH. Oh, actually, no. My very first buy was a failed transaction. I almost just quit completely there. I clicked buy. It failed. Like, oh, I just spent $20 in gas to not buy an NFT. This is
Yeah.
terrible.
Yeah.
I just like, oh, that was oh,
Regular
okay.
occurrence, right?
And then I'd like bought one like way off the floor. I bought like the 50th most the cheapest one for 0.05. Just like I don't want someone else to buy it before because they were just flying. Then there was like 40 sales a minute or something.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I bought one sheep, um, and then it sort of went up to 0.2 ETH. I was gathering wool. I did some math. I'm like, this sheep is not going to get me 20,000 wool in time to mint the next sheep. So I have a decision to make here. I either sell the wool I have because it's going to halve in value by the time it goes to 40,000, or I buy a second sheep. I ended up buying a second sheep, which worked out very well. I think I bought it also for 0.05, so I think they like pumped to like zero point 0.2 or like 0.5 in the night, and then they came back down to like 0.07. So I managed to buy the bottom again.
Mhm.
So that was very good. And then that's where all my bags came from, just those two sheep.
Wow. Yeah.
I sort of didn't really buy anything else in Wolf Game since.
Interesting. Yeah, the power of the sheep, man.
Yeah, the sheep were good.
Right?
Yeah,
They're very underestimated, and they're still at levels. I think a G1 is at like 0.07. probably
Yeah,
get
about
around.
that. So yeah, they're still up from when I bought them somehow, which
Yeah.
is ridiculous considering they're down like 99%.
Yeah, dude. I think the most
Yeah,
expensive sheep I bought, I think it was like 1.6 or something ETH.
yeah,
So it is what it is. You know, you get deals come
yeah,
and go.
for sure.
So yeah, it's exciting though. And what are your thoughts on full game? Like, I know that you're a bigger fan of Peak, is that right?
Yeah, I'm a much bigger fan of Peak. But I don't think it's like an inherently better game or anything. I think it just appeals to me more.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen plenty of attitude in the Discord that like they love Valley game. They don't like Peak. That's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Peak's not particularly my game, but I think it does appeal. I think there is a fit for it. Like I can imagine that being cool of just you manage your farm, you have these assets, you're going, you gather stuff, you grow your empire basically. Like that's a hugely successful genre in for like mobile games.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that's cool with higher stakes. Like having that with like real stakes, it sounds very appealing to me, but it just sort of doesn't hold my attention.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there needs to be more risk, right? And I think that will come with resource sinks. Would you
Yeah,
agree?
resource sinks will be good. Like they're desperately needed. And I think everyone knows that.
Sure. Yeah, and the economy, especially on the farm, everything runs in tandem with each other. You know, they all feed each other. So I think
Yep,
peak game would be really cool if it fed a little bit more of the farm game, right?
for sure.
So your success in peak game with the amount of wool that you're continually winning can then
Hmm.
transfer over to Valley, which I think is an interesting play. And then you'd be able to obviously build on your sheep
Hmm.
army, right?
Yeah. There was a suggestion. Someone said, I forget who they were. I want to credit them, but I can't remember who it was. But they
Mm-hmm.
suggested like if I won peak game, like I could nominate a community to like get a reward, like so that community will get like increased production. So I thought that could be cool. And
Hmm.
then further, I thought it would actually be very cool if like each community could like choose a representative for that community to compete on peak games, and like, they could have a tournament there, and then
Yeah.
the communities themselves would get rewards based off that. Like it get links between peak to Valley and Valley to peak seem very
Yeah.
needed. Currently, the only link is credits, which I don't think, it's a cool link in theory, but I think it's just basically C0 structure owners to peak. And I think it should capture like a lot more of the population.
Hmm. I love your idea with the collaboration. And there's so many different routes that Shep and team can take this, right? And
For
I do
sure.
believe, you know, that's more of a community builder when you're collaborating and nominating, you know, there's other really good gamers in the Wolf game space, and it'd be really kind of cool and I could see a lot of side bets going on where there's some wool side bets on who's going to win, and so that's really interesting. You know, going into the gamers overall, like Web 2 gamers, right? You obviously came from that arena. How did you overcome the skepticism that many gamers from Web 2 have about Web 3?
Making money helps. Like that's definitely helps overcome it.
Mm-hmm.
I think I came into it with a pretty skeptical attitude, to be honest. I was just like, I'm gonna put some into this. I'm gonna try it out. I'm gonna give it a good attempt. If it goes to zero, it goes to zero. And I was just willing to accept that possibility. And then since then, I've been trying to take profits regularly, or not regularly, but like for every project I invest in, like my first thing is I just want to get out my initial, and then I can just say, I've had a fun time. I haven't lost money on this. Whatever happens, happens. If it goes way up, I'll be very happy. If it goes to zero, that's okay. But yeah, so for like a Web 2 gamer trying to look to get in, I think they're also right to be skeptical because they're not in the space, right? It's like they like being in the space for like a year, almost 2 years now. You sort of build up understanding like, okay, this project is a scam. Like I can look at that and say, okay, why would I want to buy that? But then you can also see other projects like, hey, they're actually doing something, and you get that wrong sometimes too. Like you put your money in things and it just goes to zero. And from a Web2 gamer who has no idea what's happening, they're much more likely to just buy something and it goes straight to zero. Like you can actually just follow this game. So I would look to see if you can get into something for free. So just like see if you can join the Wolf Game Discord, see if someone can like delegate to you. I think there should be more free to play options. I think delegation's cool. See if you can say, just you play this sheep for a bit. I'll get the resources. You can even take like a small cut potentially. Or InfiniGods has like a great free to play option, and then they just have extra. You can pay for the Elder Gods for like a longer term bonus or followers, etc., which is much more similar to the traditional Web2 model, where like free to play games have been vastly successful, and it's great to be able to sort of try before you buy. And I think if Web2 gamers do that, they can be more confident in later putting money in.
Yeah, that's a great point. And thinking about free to play, at first, that was unheard of, right? It took like basically 8 to 10 years for it to finally sink in with gamers. And then that became the norm, right?
Yeah, for sure. That was
Super.
definitely pushback against it, like at one point, or like especially like microtransactions, like people hate those. Like
Yeah. Interesting. And I also see a lot too in different markets, right? It's the Asian market. It's huge, which you talked about, even Axie Infinity in the Philippines. Like that's really how a lot of Filipinos actually made their money, right? So, I know in the States, you're in South Africa, it's probably a bit different.
Australia, by the way.
Oh, I'm sorry. Why did I keep saying, why did I think you were South Africa? Jeez, I don't even know.
I don't know.
Australia, yeah.
Time zone.
Right. So maybe that's why the time zones were that screwed up, and it probably fell on me.
I worked out what happened. You said 9 a.m. EST, and then I thought like, oh, okay, 9 a.m. EST, that's 11 p.m. And then later you said 7 a.m. EST. I'm like, I already checked. I looked it up. It's 11 p.m. I'll just go with that. So then I just didn't notice that you were saying a different time the second time.
My goal is just to confuse everybody as much as possible.
It's working.
That's basically how I would win in any of the 3-peat games. I would just basically do the opposite of what everybody else is thinking. So.
I mean, that's actually going to work for Wits and Tug. That a very large component of the strategy is just if you just don't do what they think you're going to do, you're going to win. Assuming like you're playing strict, like there's going to be multiple strategy options, and if you do the one that they don't think you're going to do, you're going to win. That's not true for Water War. Like if there's going to be a best move, but for Wits and Targets, you have to think they think I'm going to do this, so I'm not going to do that.
Yeah,
that just gets complicated very quickly.
Yeah, very interesting. And then going back to onboarding, right? You have your friction to start off was you had a couple transactions fail and you're like, I'm done. It did take somebody like Otto to get you to say, all right, you know what? I'm going to try this again. And you said the first transaction failed again. So your conviction to keep going was very important.
Yeah.
Right. But most Web2 gamers, it's that huge friction point. So where do you think that is right now? Do you think that needs to be fixed immediately?
If you want Web2 gamers, that has to be fixed. I don't think like every crypto project needs Web2 gamers though. I think there is space for just a cool game for Web3 natives. Like there's still a decent chunk of people around. Like it's not like 2021 levels, but there's still a cool community. There's people that know how to use crypto already. There's some of those that love games, love competing. I think there's space for that. But someone who's never touched crypto is not going to be onboarded easily. Like there is a significant barrier to entry.
Yeah. So who would you say are specific niches?
Right now, I think we're only really attracting people already in crypto for Wolf Game. I think InfiniGods has like a real shot with the at the Web2 market with the. I think they're working on a custodial wallet. They've released like so King of Destiny just looks like a mobile game. Like it's
Hmm.
just a mobile game. It's going to be in the App Store. You're just going to be able. Oh, this is my understanding of it. I'm sorry if I'm saying anything wrong here, but my understanding is you can just download it. You won't know you might even need a wallet. I'm not sure how that's going to work, but I think you're not going to need your own wallet. You're just going to use it, and then I think if you want to sell assets, there might be some creation process involved there.
Hmm.
But like that looks like it's just you're not going to even know you're with a crypto wallet, and I think that's what's going to hit Web2 gamers. Like the current wallet infrastructure is just not. It's not there.
Yeah, I would agree 100%. And I do think that being in crypto is a huge positive. So a lot of the marketing should just be in that realm. You know, obviously we're in a bear, so it's going to be challenging to attract an audience during this time, but the bear will be over at some point, right? So history doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes. It'll come back.
Yeah,
and you know, what do you envision is going to be that what would you say, like climax to like that turning point for the bull to start up again? I know that there's big Web3 gamers like Alec Becker and Elio Trades, and you know there's some other guys, but they're saying Web3 gaming is going to lead the way. How does that happen, right?
Yeah, that's a cool question. I haven't thought about it too much. I could imagine a Web3 game just becoming successful, like with like what InfiniGods is doing.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't think Wolf Game specifically is going to like reignite the full run. Like that seems like it needs to solve the problem of how do you get new people into the space.
Mm-hmm.
That sort of is required for a bull run. Wolf Game doesn't look like right now it's particularly attempting that. That may change in the future. It'll be like they seem like they have sort of vague plans, but I haven't seen anything like specifically from the team saying that they're going to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But it could just like it could just it could be like a local thing where it's just like people are having fun doing this. Like you see projects pop up in Web3 like all the time, even like in the bear market.
Mm-hmm.
Like Nakamiko's, like that just took over the space for like a little bit. Pepe completely took over the space for like a decent chunk of time. You can get runs like that, but none of those. There's a long way from just like being Pepe and just hitting like a multi. Like what was this market cap? Was it like it was multi billions? Definitely, it was a lot.
Yeah, I don't know the exact.
It was.
Was it like I don't know, like
Or maybe one point. I think low billions, maybe. I'm not sure.
yeah, I don't know. I know, yeah, it got to that point because I think it was at like the last time I checked, it was down to like 200 or 300 million. I think,
Yeah,
but
that
then
sounds
it was
right. Yeah, I think it peak was like 1.3 billion or something.
yeah, which is insane.
That, yeah, but there's still a long way from like hitting $1 billion market cap and reigniting the whole crypto bull run. Like it's a long way to go, and I like a Web2 game would have to be, or like a Web3 game appealing to a Web2 audience would have to be massively successful in order to like completely reinvigorate the space.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that's inherently impossible, but like it would require a massive success, which could happen. Like people love gambling, basically.
Yeah. And you look at Axie and how they attracted most of their players, it was because people were making money, right? So it's absolutely. Like they learned how to onboard themselves in order to make money. So if the desire is strong enough, it could certainly happen. Looking into peak games, right? So I don't know. I look at you as kind of like almost unbeatable at times.
Can you definitely not unbeatable? Like I'm not the best at water wall. Okay. And then I've got decent win rates in the other ones, but like it's
Yeah,
very far from beatable. I'm losing consistently.
sure. Why do you think that is? Do you think you're almost, can you be too good for the game? Like you had mentioned that the ones that might get the upper edge are the ones that are just doing a really unorthodox style. And, you're trying to guess their next moves and you're like, this is the logical move. As a gamer, I'm thinking 4 steps ahead of you. Why aren't you doing that? And it's predominantly they're guessing, right? So do you think that there's a advantage point to that?
Um, yeah, that's what I'm doing right now. That's actually my like main strategy for Wolfwits and Tug of War is I'm heavily leaning on just picking randomly. Like
Yeah.
I come up with like a couple of good plays. I'm like, yeah, this looks good. This looks good.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna randomly pick between them.
Yeah.
So there's sort of two strategies you can do. You can either I've been thinking of it like offense and defense. If you know the other player and you think you've got a good idea what they're going to do, you can
Mm-hmm.
play offense and like say, I think you're going to do this, so I'm going to beat it with this. Or the alternative is you play defense. Like, I don't know what you're going to do. I'm going to make it really hard for you to know what I'm going to do. So you're not going to be able to beat me. So I'm just not going to, yeah, I'm not going to try and play this mind game with you. I'm just going to pick something that's going to be a decent move a decent chunk of the time. Yeah, so unless I have that edge specifically where I've been tracking my opponent and I'm like, okay, this is a weakness in their game. Every time we get into this spot, they do this, I'm going to be able to beat that.
Mm-hmm.
Unless, and that comes up rarely. And then once you start doing it, they're like, hey, this guy beats me. This is not working for me. Every time I do this, this guy just beats me. And then he's going to start doing something different.
Mm.
So, yeah, I just actually just randomly pick like a lot of the time. Like most moves I have, there's like, this looks good, this looks good. I'm going to go on random.org. If the number's high, I'm going to do this one. If it's low, I'm going to do that one.
Mm-hmm.
It's,
Yeah.
yeah.
Interesting. And it's almost like you're luring them in, right, for the defensive mode, and then you're striking when you're starting to see some weakness, right? So,
yeah, that's a decent analogy. Yeah. So if I do see, like, they're like, oh, it doesn't really matter what I do because he's just picking randomly, so I'm just going to do this safe, simple one that
mm-hmm.
I know is going to be good, and then I can sort of see that, oh yeah, they keep doing that same thing. I can target it.
Yeah, yeah. Very interesting. So would you say then that is Water Wall your favorite?
No, I would not. I would say Wolfwoods is my favorite. I
Okay.
enjoy that game of like picking randomly. I enjoy that game of like offense and defense and
Yeah.
trying to decide randomly.
That's kind of like
You also,
Hearthstone too, right? Sorry to
yeah, for
interrupt.
sure.
Yeah.
Hearthstone has a lot of randomness.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's quite good for fun games. Like it's so the issue that I have with Waterwall, which is and why I'm not playing the Summit, and I think why most people aren't playing the Summit. I don't think there's like a Summit population for Waterwall is because there's two possibilities if I play the Summit for Waterwall. Either I am the better player, in which case the player that mashed up against me is going to stop playing against me because he's going to realize that I don't want to place Ender on the Summit because I'm going to lose. So I'm going to win one game and then it's going to stop. Or alternatively, I'm going to match someone on the Summit and I'm going to be worse. I'm like, okay, that player is better than me. I'm not going to play on the Summit again.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to stop playing very quickly on the Summit. Whereas Wolfwits and Tug of War are interesting because you can lose a game with like, oh, if I just did that, then I would have won. Like you don't
Yeah.
see like, oh, this other player is clearly better than me. It's I just got unlucky that game. I can play again. I can do it again. So you don't like you're not going to be scared off scared off the Summit because of one loss.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think that helps a lot for casual games. Like two players can just play a game. Someone might be like significantly better, but the worst player is going to have a fine time because they're going to win some games and they're going to see they have a chance and they're going to keep playing.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Water Wall I equate a lot to chess.
Yeah, it's a perfect analogy.
Yeah. I played Water Wall once, guessed on every move, somehow won, and I was scared as hell. I was like, I don't know if I ever want to play that game again. And that was only for 950 wool, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's crazy. It's awesome. I like Wolfwits probably the best too. I'm still kind of confused with how a lot of the cards work. I mean, it seems so simple, but there are little
Definitely
things where
confusing.
you're like, well, I thought that would win, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
yeah, I think you
There's a couple
obviously
of
got to
those
do your
interactions.
research a little more, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The anecdote with that, Val was making peak tools on the like Feral Arena recently, and was just trying to work out all the rules for that. And so I was just went just going like, there's a lot of weird interactions. Here's a list of them. Just make sure you get them correct.
Yeah. Don't overcomplicate it. Just, yeah, simplify. That's
Yeah.
awesome. So going into InfiniGods and Wolf
Hmm.
Game, so you're a strong competitor within the InfiniGods ecosystem. How does that skill, like, how does it compare and contrast, or does it with Wolf Game? Like, any transferable strategies?
Um, the biggest thing I did for InfiniGods was I just in like the opening weekend they had like a first competition.
Mhm.
I just played for the entire weekend. Like I sat down, I played like 20 hours that weekend, just trying to get on the leaderboard.
Yeah.
And then I got second.
Who beat you?
Mr. Woolwide.
Okay.
That was yeah, that was early. He sort of stopped competing, so then I sort of took first after that.
Huh.
But initially he was just crushing me consistently.
It's
Um,
good though. You have to.
yeah, yeah,
It's like having an older brother, right? You've got to get
yeah,
thrown
yeah.
around a little bit to toughen you up.
Yeah, that definitely made me get better at the game. Like I was so far ahead of second place, and I think if I was just first by like a long way, I would not have had that motivation. But like I was second by just like a little bit consistently for like the first month of the game, and I just wanted to keep improving that score.
Yeah.
Um,
But that's what leaderboards do, right? I mean,
yeah,
that's
leaderboards
perfect. It's
definitely do that.
perfect for your personality trait.
Yeah, yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So, but it was putting in the time is going to be the most transferable skill. Infini Merge is on a hexagonal grid, which maybe helped a bit with Waterwall because that's also on a hexagonal grid. So I can visualize what's going to be around, but that doesn't save much time. Like you're going to pick that up within like at least a couple of hours of playing Hex. You're going to learn like, okay, this goes there. If I do this, like the grid makes sense.
Hmm. Interesting. And did you mint InfiniGods?
Yeah, I did mint InfiniGods. Yeah, I minted I think like five ultimate. No, not five ultimate. One ultimate pass and like five community passes. Um,
Hmm.
which is good. InfiniGods has become my biggest bag by far because I just and any winnings I've got from InfiniGods, I just end up putting back into the game. And I've won a decent chunk. So
Yeah.
like I just keep buying Elder Gods.
Yeah. Sticking with what you're good at too. And where does your conviction come from with InfiniGods?
Oh, it's just the team just seems good. Like it's just like they've made genuinely fun games, which I enjoy, and it looks like they're developing new ones, and they just look like actual good games. Like it's pretty simple.
Yeah. The marketing has been really cool for sure. It seems like, pretty not cutting edge, but it does, like you had said,
Yeah,
it looks like would you classify it as a AAA game?
it's not a triple A game. No,
No. Yeah.
it's definitely a long way from a triple A, but it's a nice casual game. Like
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah. Which is important to onboard the
for sure.
masses,
Yeah,
right?
like the
So,
masses have enjoyed games like non
yeah.
triple A games, like for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, so you're casting a pretty large net for sure. Interesting. So, going back to the traditional gamers and how they label Web3 as a Ponzi scheme,
Hmm.
what would you say your arguments against this notion is, and like especially as someone who's deeply involved in both worlds?
Um, it's complex. It's complex on like I think what makes something like at its core a Ponzi scheme is just sort of the marketing attached to it. If you
Mhm.
say if you buy this, it's going to go up, you're going to make money, you're going to sell it to someone for more later. That that verges on Ponzi. Like it's
Yeah.
like the core like scam of the Ponzi scheme was like disguising where the yield came from. He was like, I'm selling stamps. I've got this cool arbitrage, but he's really just giving you like 5% a day, and it's just
Hmm.
hiding where the yield comes from. I think telling people that the yield is coming from somewhere, but like it's really not, that definitely verges on Ponzi. I think if you, I don't think there's a significant difference between like the Pokemon card market or like the Magic the Gathering card market and NFTs outside of one's physical, one's digital. I think players from that area specifically should be able to sort of see what's happening there. Um, but most sort of games don't have that kind of like established market in that sense. But I think they kind of just have to. It's just like any in-game item, except that you can sell it to other players potentially.
Hmm.
People put money into game. People put plenty of money into games with no expectation of profit, like at all. It's the difference with NFTs is there's a secondary market where you could potentially sell it to someone else, or you could buy off someone else.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think just if you're looking at it as like, this is definitely going to make me money, I'm going to make, my sheep produces $2,000 a day. I just have to buy it for $4,000 and I'm going to make $2,000 a day and I'm going to get free money. And then if you market that towards people, I think that definitely verges on a Ponzi scheme.
Yeah.
If you sort of market it as, hey, this is a game, you can buy these things, maybe people buy it off you later.
Yeah.
That's just sounds like a game.
Yeah, exactly. And you're being upfront, the communication. And that's what the pros do with Web3 being so early. You do have a lot of the influencers out there that were pumping these specific coins and tokenomics and just ridiculousness. And it did certainly give them a bad name. And I think a lot of them have exited the arena, the Web3 arena.
Yep.
And it just leaves room for the professional ones, the ones that are upfront. And it's just like in any business, right? I run personal training facilities. So it's, if I'm not upfront and the communication isn't clear with clients right off the bat, it's like, you're not doing anybody favors. And then you just start getting them to second guess, and people can smell that. They can smell when you're lying, when you're false, right? So being authentic, your messaging needs to be right. I think InfiniGods and Wolf Game, they both have excellent messaging. I only think it's going to get stronger. They have a great team, especially in the marketing team too. So I'm excited to kind of see that unfold for sure. If you could give advice to anybody that's coming into the space from Web 2, what would you say to them?
Yeah. Just try it out. Just get in communities like before buying, or just only put in money that you are comfortable to lose. Like for sure, I think a lot, like in the bull run, like people put in way more money than they were comfortable with initially. But like initially, you should just like explore. Just if $100 is a sum you could feel okay losing, you can put in $100. Like treat it as like a night out. Like it's just like buying a game. It's like you can get this experience, see how it goes. If you don't
Mm-hmm.
like it, you can probably sell it. Um, but also just see if you can get into a community for free. Like InfiniGods, you can get in for free easily. Like they have playable games right now. You can just see how you like it, and then you can decide like, are these assets? Is this a community that I enjoy being in? Does this actually provide me specifically value? Like, because you do get value out of these communities for sure. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and then if you can identify that, then you can start putting money in, and then you can sort of start treating it as, I'm going to put money in. I think people might like this later, but I would be very cautious before doing that. Like realistically, you're like, as if you're coming from like a Web 2 game, your gauge of market sentiment is not going to be your strong point. It's not my strong point like at all. Like I am in here for the games, and I understand. Like I'm not trying to speculate on how the price of my tokens will go. I have the tokens because I like won them. I like them. I taken some profit. I'm not putting more money in. Like, that's my personal stance. But if you have money to put in and you're enjoying the community, you can start trying to get into that. It's sort of up to you, but just try it out cautiously first.
Yeah, that's some great advice. Community is everything. And you talked about Hearthstone being such an important community for you and kind of your journey, right? So what would you say separates the Wolf Game and InfiniGods communities from anybody else?
There's just a lot of cool people in Wolf Game. And they were all like attracted to it for a reason. And I think if you are also someone who likes the concept of Wolf Game, you're going to meet other people in Wolf Game that like the concept of Wolf Game. Like, people here are like, they like new ideas, they like strategy, they're like very open to ideas. Like, you have to be fairly open to ideas to buy a digital sheep and for like hundreds, potentially tens of thousands of dollars. I don't think sheep went very high. Yeah, they might.
Yeah.
But yeah, and there's just talent. There's a lot of just talent in the community. Like, the builders in the community, like making all these sites, are very cool. People have cool takes. Like, people just have reasonable discussions on what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the people that are still here and engaged, like, they've been through just a lot. Like, they have a lot of experience. They've been through different parts of the project, and they're still here. Like, that's very cool.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Yeah. If there were problems in Wolf Game, right, which there are, what would you say that the top two problems are, and what are some possible ways to rectify them?
Dev speed has been a problem. I think just the rate at which new features and like resource sinks had to come out like 5 months ago, like, to maintain like consistent uses for resources. We sort of got like a month or 2 months worth of stuff to spend resources on in like the form of structures. And typically when you see that in a game, it's like, okay, there's stuff to do for 1 to 2 months. That means 1 to 2 months later, they're going to release new stuff that I can then do with these. That sort of hasn't happened. And then I think there was like a similar problem with wool pouches. Like, the design of wool pouches was to limit the amount of wool in the ecosystem for like when we actually started needing to use wool. It's somewhat limited, but like, those pouches from Risky Game have now been dripping for a year and a half, and there's not actually that much difference from a year and a half of wool drip for people having that available and 4 years worth of wool drip if we just got liquid wool. I think that it's just dev speed has sort of just not kept up with the way they sort of structured the tokenomics. Like, I think it seems like they were planning on releasing stuff earlier, and that sort of hasn't happened. But I think the recent Pixel acquisition does seem like something that could potentially significantly change like dev speed and the way we get releases. I'm not too sure like what were the underlying issues involved, but yeah, Pixel acquisition does seem like something that could potentially change that. The other issue I see with like Wolf Game in general is that I think I think there are very, very few people in it who are not in it to make money. In traditional Web2 games, no one is in it to make money. Like, there's plenty of people that put like tens of thousands of dollars into a game with no expectation of profit. I do not think you have those people at all in Wolf Game. Every person that puts money into Wolf Game is realistically, they're doing it with the expectation of profit. I think, and that this is a much harder problem to solve. It does have its appeals. Like, I can imagine a person like that is. It's not that you shouldn't have any expectation of profit, but it should be the money that you put in actually provides value to you outside of I can dump this on someone else later for more. Like, it can give you status within the community. Status is a huge thing. People love it. And that's sort of the main thing it gives, to be honest. But like
Yeah,
that's
it can only
valuable.
get you so far too, right?
Like just putting money in for status.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, it's vanity at that point, right? It's more fluff. So if you're a numbers person, there are some that are very gifted in data creation and looking at arbitrage moments. I know Farmer Pity, he's big with spreadsheets, which I love. And there are some things that you can do well, but again, how big is your initial investment and what does that look like too, right? So I think those are great points. As far as you've been pretty vocal too about peak games, right? And like, how do we attract more? And you'd mentioned leaderboard is very important.
Yep.
Do you think that that is something that immediately needs to happen? And then what would those prizes look like in your mind?
I think that well, prizes could look like a lot of different things. I'll go to the like when it needs to happen first. I think you want to maintain a player population at Summit. I think it gets kind of awkward if people just like completely stop playing the game. Like if you just can't find a match on Summit, which it's not happening now. It's not so much in a rush. I think they had momentum like initially when peak games came out, and that's sort of lost. And then now that it's lost, I think we're going to sort of maintain the current momentum we have for like a little bit longer. So I don't think leaderboards have to come out like now. Now I think if they came out like 1 month, 2 months ago, that would have been good. But I don't think it's going to be that different if they come out like now and like a month from now. I
Mm.
think we're in like a pretty similar spot. I think, like personally, I could definitely be biased here, but I would like to see large leaderboard prizes. I don't see like that many people mentioning this, but we have 1.38 billion wool in community rewards, which the only mention of what community rewards were being for in like the wallpaper is peak games. Like that's the peak game description is peak game rewards will be sourced from the community rewards. The size of the community rewards pool is 1.38 billion wool. I think we could potentially see very large rewards just coming directly from there. There's other people that want to see like outside rewards, which I think could be cool. But that's a question of like funding and stuff. It's like how much does Pixel Vault / Wolf Game team want to put like outside money into the leaderboards? I could understand if they don't particularly want to just keep dumping money into this, but like winning a punk would be very cool as a prize. I think that's like a perfect prize for like an outside reward. I don't particularly like the idea of ETH rewards. Like they could be cool, like it would attract an audience, but like it doesn't seem that different from just wool. Or it's like wool appeals to people that are already in Wolf Game. The ETH
Hmm.
appeals to people that aren't.
Hmm.
It does give a bit more stability there. That'd be cool. But like a punk is it's just cool. It is just a cool reward. And I
Yeah.
think it attracts the kinds of people that like we are currently marketing towards. Like currently,
Hmm.
Wolf Game is a Web3 game. It is for currently Web3 natives, and I think a punk attracts Web3 natives like quite well.
Yeah.
So that would be cool to see. That's a big prize. I don't know if they want to go that size. Like they could, or they could not. Like a lot of games, like got large just because they had one big tournament that they just put a lot of money into. For example,
Yeah.
like Dota 2, the international, um, Valve just put $1 million into that first tournament, and Dota 2 just took off after that. Like it basically started like, or maybe not started, but like it was huge for the esports scene. And I think I heard like Fortnite did something similar. Like Riot just started funding Fortnite prize pools, and it just took off after that.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Interesting. Yeah, all great points. The only thing I think about too, if it is a wool prize, what's to keep that winner from just dumping it?
it's
Obviously you burn it at that point, right? But still, and then the punk, I think, is a you nailed it, right? I mean, it's the most popular project. Everybody wants one. I do think collaboration's important too in business. And from a dollar standpoint, from Pixelvault and Wolf Game standpoint, like you can work out a deal with, say, Cool Cats or whatever, like they're getting free marketing at that point, right? So if this thing does blow up, somebody wins some of these huge prizes, that, you know, that could certainly, or we could give a certain amount of buy-ins to their community. I mean, there's so many different ways to spin it, but I do love that. And then obviously you have cash, right? I mean, I don't know what the logistics behind that is with the SEC, and you know they've given no real guidance. I mean, it's a shit show. But so yeah, all great points. I do want to run into just a couple actually 3 mystery questions for you.
Okay.
All right, so you're gonna get 3. Okay.
Sure.
So if you could integrate one classic video game character into Wolf Game for a special event, who would it be, and what unique abilities would they bring?
Classic video game character. That's a cool question. Oddly enough, I haven't actually played like that many like video games. My sort of tendency is I get very into like one game. But my like general classic knowledge is kind of lacking.
So even if it's not the classic, maybe if it's one of just your favorite games.
Yeah. And I'm thinking, I want to do something animal related would be cool for sure. Let's go like Rexar is like a character from World of Warcraft and Hearthstone. He's like a hunter. It'd be cool to like he can like tame pets, so that'd be cool. A cool ability.
So like you can defend against some of these powerful wolves maybe in Wolf Game.
I think
I don't know.
Conversion mechanic would be very cool. So like I want to see like risk back in Wolf Game. Like being able to lose your NFT, it was a very cool mechanic. I'd like to see like a sort of opt-in arena, like for like RuneScape. There's like the Wildlands, like where you can die, like where there's real risk involved. You don't have to go in there, but there'll be rewards available in there. So like I would like to see an opt-in thing to like really have some like high stakes things. So like his ability could be to somehow like with difficulty, with like a lot of cost and difficulty and risk, to be able to like convert a sheep from another player to you. I would like to see that kind of high stakes competition.
Yeah, really get into the degens out there and market it to it. I mean, that's what we're really marketing to, right?
Yeah.
At the current state, right? So, okay, question number 2. If you had to choose one pro gamer to be your Wolf Game teammate in a world championship, who would it be and why?
One pro gamer. Your Wolf Game teammate.
Or even if it's not a pro gamer, even if it's somebody in the community, Wolf Game community.
Ooh. Yeah. If it's in the community, I reckon it would have to be Bry. Bry just seems very knowledgeable. He's very charismatic. He just seems like he'd be very good at whatever Wolf Game had to offer. Like he's had success. Like he's good strategically. And I think if there were any like team-based aspects to it, like with Alpha Game, right, where you had to like do politics, I feel like he'd be pretty good at the politics side of things.
Yeah, I would agree.
And I think he'd round out like my abilities very nicely.
Yeah, I would throw Term up there too.
Yeah, Term's for sure. Like Term and Bry are like top 2. I could easily see Term.
Yeah, super interesting. Great answer. Imagine a scenario where Wolf Game and InfiniGods had a crossover event. What would be the ultimate quest or challenge, and what would that prize be?
A crossover event. Um, it'd be cool. It'd be very cool to see the gods in Wolf Game. Like, it's a different aesthetic for sure. They could have like control over like the weather for sure. Like that's something gods do.
Hmm.
Um, they could, yeah, it could just be like some. I think it'd be cool to see like some villains involved, like some force is like attacking the valley, and then like the gods come in to like help, like buff the wolves, buff the sheep, like that. That could be very cool. I would like to see valley-wide events. I think Term's been talking about it. That just sounds very cool. And then it would be
Love
cool
that.
to like see if you wanted an InfiniGods crossover to see gods step in. In terms of prizing, um, both teams have like a prize pool they can draw from. Um, InfiniGods has a bunch of Elder Gods and Community Passes and Ultimate Passes, which they can just hand out to reward members of the community that they want to reward, basically. Whether that be through like success in the game or like creating good content. Like you would easily be able to win a god with these podcasts. Like they do competitions for
Yeah.
like what's the best marketing you can put onto Twitter. Like this would win hands down.
Cool.
Um,
Yeah, I appreciate
uh,
that.
yeah, but
Yeah, I
and
want
then
to
Wolf Game.
continue. Yeah, I want to continue to create, man, and just like provide value. That's it. I mean, this
Yeah,
this stuff again, it takes time, but I'm having a
for
blast
sure.
doing it. And it's been so fun just learning about everybody's journeys, right? I mean, it's like I don't know, that's what I do in real life. I mean, it's like I'm a, professional rapport builder and I just people fascinate me. And I think that getting other people's stories out there is just so powerful because they can resonate with everybody. Like my story may not resonate with somebody else's story, and yours, and that's why I think it's so cool to get you on as an intense gamer who takes it very serious. I mean, you're watching the clock for peak games right now, and you want to
I,
earn as much wool as possible, right? It's like
yeah, yeah.
dude, it's crazy, man. It's like, do you have a specific goal of how much wool you want to win? I mean, obviously, you're like as much as possible, but
Yeah.
do you?
Um, I've sort of hit the first goal. So I wanted to get to 1 million wool and join the Citadel. So I've done that. It's sort of on and off. It's split between my game wallet and my like actual wallet. So I need to get it all into the game wallet. So like that was first goal. But then beyond that, I don't have a goal. It's very dependent on like what the leaderboards look like. My goal is first place in the leaderboards. Like that's my goal. I don't know what that's going to be, but I want to win. Um, it, yeah, if the first prize is the punk, that'd be a dream come true. Like that's a long term goal in the NFT space. I want to own a punk.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Same here.
that would be
Yep.
yeah. This that could do it. That'd be very cool. But yeah, just whatever the first prize is, I want to get that. I want to get a leaderboard and I want to win that leaderboard.
So what
I
motivates you then at that point? Like why so important to be on that leaderboard?
just because I think I can be the best. Like I think there's sort of really nothing stopping me from being the best. And I want to prove to myself that I can do it. For like Hearthstone, I wasn't the best at Hearthstone. I was a top 100 competitor, I reckon. I would say I would say comfortably top 100. But I put in more time than most, and that got me there. But like I just want to prove that like I can play games. Like this like should be my like chance to shine. This is a game which is completely new to everyone. Waterball, not so much. Like, there's people that I'm just never going to be able to compete with at Hex. Like, they're just going to be better than me. If they come into
Mm-hmm.
Wolf Game, I'm going to lose. I'm like, okay, that's fair. Like, I was never being there. But I want to be the best at Wolfwits and Tug of War. Those are like genuinely new games that no one's. They're not completely new, but like, no one's spent time getting good at them. I want to prove to myself I can be the best at these games. Like,
Yeah, dude.
like I regret I wasn't like around, but like the 2002, 2003 like poker boom, like I would have loved to like just be there at the start. I was 5 at the time, so not not particularly regretting that.
Yeah.
Like that
Yeah.
wasn't a decision of mine, but like I look back like if I was there, I reckon I could have learned it quickly and like I could have done it. So like I want to see like this feels to me just like could I have done that? Like let's try it. Like let's like how good can I be in like a just completely new setting?
Yeah. So cool. It becomes an obsession, I'm sure.
Yeah,
Right. And you're like,
definitely.
literally you're just studying and playing and practicing like the stuff that people don't see behind the scenes, right? With
Yeah,
any
yeah,
great amazing athlete, they don't see the hard work. They go, oh, that guy's just really lucky. They don't
yeah,
understand the countless hours that they put in,
yeah,
and
yeah.
you know, the just the hard stuff, the blood sweat and tears. So dude, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on. You've provided so
Thanks
much
for having me.
value, man. It's like, you know, again, having the perspective of a gamer, I think it can help those who are on the fence and you know, possibly thinking about jumping into the Wolf game ecosystem and even the InfiniGods ecosystem. It's been a pleasure having you all the way from Australia to New York. Ender, you've absolutely killed this episode. I can't wait to air it to our Wolf game community and then all of Web3 space. And I think everybody needs to hear this coming from your perspective. So awesome, dude. I loved it.